think it is. Can you double check on your end? Should
Sure.
be.
Yeah. So I could click it. Let's see. It just says, oh, yeah, there it is.
To Nostradamus Trading. Me and Rob are going to be doing a live stream today for setting yourself up for success in 2026. We figured it would make a good start of the year as we do want to get into more kind of content related videos as well as doing the weekly videos for Crude. So, what are we going to be talking about in this video? One, we're going to be talking about what is trading success. Then, we're going to be talking about the problems that we all face as traders. We're going to talk about a loop that is pretty much just an endless loop where you're trying to get better, but you're really just repeating old habits. We're going to talk about the New Year blueprint. So, how do we goal set? And then finally, we're going to share some examples. And if there's anyone in the chat, we'll take a Q&A. So, let me go on to the next slide so we can get started. So, next slide, what is success in trading? We're going to let Rob take this.
All right. So, what is success in trading? Um, First little note, go ahead and hit that little thing. Success is different depending on each trader because, we all trade different. Um, Success can be, it really depends on your level. For a beginner, success could be not losing money. Maybe Um, yeah, for traders starting out, success could be sticking to a plan and progress. So what that means is, sticking to a plan such as, setting up your plan for, like your scenarios for the day. Like if you're doing all your analysis and then you wake up in the morning and you're, seeing where the market is, and then you set up your scenarios or hypos. Um, Actually sticking to them is a big deal because some people just say fuck it, I'm just going to wake up, wipe the crust out of my eyes, and then just push buttons and like just trade levels blindly, um, click on shit blindly, and then at the end of the day they wonder what the fuck went wrong. So yeah, for the new trader starting out, actually following the process is such a huge thing. um, and then as well as taking notes on how you did, maybe grading yourself, maybe mentioning, okay, well, this was my plan, how did I execute it, and building from there, maybe seeing over a week how they did, how many days did they actually stick to their plan, how many days did they don't, and then seeing like each week goes by, do they actually show some sort of growth. um, for the intermediate traders, for people who actually have a little more success, not success, but for a little more, stage 1 and 2 are the little newbie stages where you feel, stage 1 is just, you're just in the trenches, you have no idea what the fuck is going on, and stage 2 is kind of like a little bit of that aha moment, but you're still kind of fucking up and you're still making errors. Stage 3 or 4 is where you reduce your errors, you have particular setups that you stick to. You have some sort of consistency with setting up your plan. You might be able to differentiate between the days that you want to trade, or you can identify days that look really good to trade and also days that do not look good to trade as well. um, the nice part is, like, when you're in stage 3 or 4, you have the abilities to just, things become second nature and you don't have to think too much. So when you see a trade setup, you're not thinking in the back of your head, oh, look, this is my trade setup. I'm supposed to do this. It's more of something natural. It's, kind of like if you never threw a baseball for the first time, you don't know how the baseball is going to, come at you, how to catch it with a glove. But with enough time and practice, it just becomes second nature. You see the ball, you just catch it with your mitt, and then you just throw it on off. Um, that takes time. That's something that doesn't just uh, very few people have that come naturally. This is a game of in. And the reps aren't the same. It's not like going to the gym and doing a particular exercise and increasing your reps and increasing your weight and seeing growth. You know, that it's not put X in, get Y result. It's put X in, you may get Y results, you might get Z results, and yeah, it's not very straightforward. That's the only thing that sucks. And then for the advanced traders, for people who have actually gotten to formulate plans every day, have a process, stick to it, the end game is really sizing up positions, in terms of that. Like, if you start off trading three contracts on crude oil or the S&P, the ES, it could be a fact where, hey, I'm ready to size up to four or five or six or however many contracts that you go, because you've been able to show the ability to maintain your discipline. You've been able to show that you have more winning days and losing days. Um, your your expected value of any trade is positive. You have a really good track record. And even though you might have some, like a few losing days in a row, they don't really, fuck with you. That in the long run, you actually show growth with the long term, and that's when your account gets bigger and you're able to size up, or if you're, I don't know, if you're trading those funded accounts and you decided to take on another funded account and do multiples, that might be another way that some people can size up positions. And then expanding markets, some people just like to stick to one market. I, for example, like to just stick to crude oil. Um, and I know that there are other traders that will do crude oil and the ES and NQ and RTY, and they'll have 8 different markets to watch, and they'll do all their homework. And they know that some markets are not going to be ideal to trade, and then the other ones will offer uh, more opportunity. So among those 8 different markets that they monitor, I think 8 is a lot, but maybe if they're just tracking 4, that they actually have the ability to at least find something, where they do find a market which is tradable, which offers really good reward to risk. Um, yeah, that you're not just sticking to one. More often than not, there's nothing wrong with sticking to one market, but again, if you want to watch multiple markets and you have that bandwidth, and the capacity to actually monitor multiple markets, that's fine. And some people kill it trading 2 or 3 markets at a time, or 4. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of it in terms of success. When all comes down to it, it's making money. It's being consistently profitable. Because if you're doing all this shit and you're not making any money, then I don't know what to tell. For traders starting out, when you stick to your plan and progress and you become consistently profitable, that is a big ordeal. And then as you move on to the intermediate section, where you start to do things second nature and you still maintain the ability to be consistently profitable, awesome. And then what does consistently profitable mean? Is it a measure of, are you profitable every day? Are you profitable over a week, over a month? Again, there's a lot of variance in trading, like where you could have 3 down days in a row. Oh, I'm not consistent, when it could have been 3 days that could have been completely shitty. But if you look at your frame, being consistent over a long run is actually probably the most important thing. So that is a big deal. That's where you want to aim to be, and taking pride in the achievements along the way. Growing, is a big thing, because you want to pat yourself on the back when you do these little things. And when you add, I guess what you could say is, like, when you're showing your consistency and doing your plans, and you're able to perform trades that are on your setups that are just second nature, you should really reflect on that and say, oh wow, I've come a long way. If everybody took a daily journal and not made it so technical and said, oh, how they felt, how they performed, and if they were to look back at, like, a few years ago and say, oh shit, this is how I did a few years ago and this is what I'm doing now, and to realize how they did. That's a big deal. It's kind of like losing weight, where you could look at the scale every day, or look at yourself in the mirror every day and not notice some of the changes. But then when you take pictures over weeks or months, you know or even years, not necessarily weight loss, but it might be a muscle gain. It might be where you started on this quest to, I don't know, get jacked and 15 or 10% body fat, and you could push a certain amount of weight in the gym, and you may not see certain things over a few months, but over a few years, that's a big deal. So yeah, if you're able to keep such a record, and look back and see how you've grown. Growth doesn't happen quick. It's slow and steady. As I always say, slow and steady wins the race. That this is not a sprint but a marathon. That is definitely true in this case. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
And even adding to it, like taking pride in our small achievements. I have journals from like when I first started, and it's like when you're looking at old stuff, like how you used to do things compared to like where you are now, it's just, it's rewarding to see. It's like I was there, you were trading one way, and then as you develop, you start trading a different way, and then you look back at your old self, and you'll ask yourself, why did I do that? See, like if you are kind of keeping a pretty large track record of when you first started, to where you are today, it's just good to see like where you came from, and it's like always good to remember that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I think about stuff that I used to do years ago, like back in 2020 and 2021, when I was just a scalper, and I thought that was the greatest thing to do, and it was tiring. And as I get older, I don't want to be a scalper, and I look back and I'd see how my growth would go from being a scalper to being more of a um, taking a look at key setups for intraday trades, to now it's weekly trades, to get in on a turning point for a weekly and hold out for something for itself from time to time. And that'll probably be addressed in one of the slides that we have. But yeah, it's really cool how things have definitely changed for me over the years. And I don't know if it's going to get even uh, more there's going to be more of a change. I think it's more leveled out to kind of where I feel like this is where I belong. Trade on oil, but yeah, I don't want to go back to what I used to do back in 2020 and 2021. No, no,
Yeah, for
thank you.
sure.
I'll pass.
All right, so moving on to the next slide, uh, let's talk about the problems that traders do. So when traders enter a new year, usually I want to say energy is pretty high. We're excited for the new year. We want to change, but we don't know how to structure it properly. And what do I mean by that? So the first example of this is, you know, you you could set yourself some unrealistic goals, or you set way too many goals that you really don't know where to start. And when you do that, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself because one, if you have 10 goals, it's like, which goal am I working on? Am I working on the execution goal? Am I working on the scenario development goal? You just have way too much to really dive into. So, I mean, if anyone is here, these are just some questions that I kind of prepared to ask you guys. Well, one, do you avoid looking at your own numbers to see what you've done this year? Like, are you scared to look at your numbers? Like, I remember something my brother told me is, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. So it's like the numbers are gonna tell
That's
you
a
the
good one.
truth. So, and
That's
then
actually really good. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, it was. I remember when he first told me, I was like, you know what, that is a really good quote. And the second question is, do you set too many unrealistic goals that starting feels like a challenge? So obviously, you you want to push yourself, but you want to make it so that the goals you're setting is achievable. I'm not saying make it easy. I'm just saying make those goals achievable to a point where you could do it within a quarter, and you can move on. It's not like you're saying, "Oh, I'm going to take this $10,000 account to, I don't know, $250,000 in a year." Be realistic with yourself. I mean, I don't know how you would do that. And then finally,
Nancy Pelosi trading service. That's how to do that.
yeah, that's what you need. And then finally, don't follow up to make sure you're working towards the goals you said you would. And all these things I have up here, it's literally things I've done. I remember where I would set goals. I remember, I would set way too many goals. It's like I don't know which goal to start, and it's like you kind of just default back to your old habits, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about on the next slide. And when you set goals, it's you set it and maybe it's like one or two goals, but you're not following up on it. And that's literally something I've done. I've experienced that where I said I want to do this, the quarters pass and I'm not checking in to be like, okay, I want to make sure I'm on track. And that's something that you should remember. You should always, you know, focus on it, try to do it to your best of your ability, and then in a week, in a month, or quarterly, you check back, make sure you're on that right track. I think that way you're working towards something that you planned for at the start of the year.
I like the
So,
stuff about the goals.
yeah.
Um, because when you mentioned setting too many goals and your focus can be scattered. I remember a long time ago, I think back in 2016, I picked up this book called The Unchained Man. It's one of those red pill books about how men can find happiness in life, and it's definitely one of those red pill books. So it's not a recommendation to get. Most people would probably scoff at it. But this one guy, his name is Caleb Jones. He was known as Black Dragon, and he is really good at time management, all this other good stuff. And in his book, he had this system to where you would be able to set out your goals and so on and so forth. And he had a system on how to manage time. And he specifically said there's science behind it. You do not do more than two major goals at a time. Because if you bite off more than you could chew, you end up just fucking everything up. You end up just pissing away. You could bleed energy out to the point where you feel overwhelmed. So he said, if you want to pick so many goals that you want to reach, list them all out, maybe on 3x5 cards, and then pick two of them, the ones that you mainly want to focus on, and let the other ones go on the back burner, and do not work on those until you finish the two that you picked. And then once you finish those, then you pick another goal to work on. And I found it over my life to be extremely effective, because I remember when I was young, just set up a ton of fucking goals, and then you find out that you just you reach none of them because you feel like you're being dragged in too many directions. So yeah, that is a big one. So
I think that ties in perfectly with like this slide, this sort of loop. I don't know. Do you want to touch up on it, or do you want me to touch up on
um
this?
I mean, you can, but yeah, like the new year, when you so many people have their New Year's resolutions and shit like that. Oh, I'm gonna lose weight, or I'm gonna hit the gym. And when you go to the gym for the first 2 weeks, it's filled with so many fucking people, and then you just know, like, all right, just wait 2 weeks, and then most of them are gonna be gone. Yeah, those are the people that set unrealistic goals, or they bite off more than they could chew. Yeah, this never ending cycle of fuckery. You start off the new year, it feels like you're just riding high because, oh yeah, it's a new year, it goes from 2025 to 2026. Oh, this year's going to be different. And it's funny because you know just because we have this measure of time, it's a new year. um it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't just start this at any point in time. Like, we're doing this video for the new year because it is the new year, and we might catch some people that want to make changes, that like to set up something at the beginning of the year because it's on a calendar, everything feels fresh psychologically. But yeah, I mean, you can make these changes anytime you want. But yeah, most of the time people go into the new year like they're going to try to redline it, just go high octane, pedal to the metal, bite off more than they could chew, and then they figure out, oh shit, yeah, where do you start? um, that's the big thing. Like, they don't know where they're going to go. They're like a chicken with their head cut off, and then they just kind of throw in the towel and say fuck it. And then yeah, the circle just keeps repeating itself. So that's kind of crazy. You go ahead, and if you have anything mentioned that you wanted to
I
mention
mean,
on
no, I mean,
this.
I think you pretty much hit all the points. It's like, new year, like I said, energy's high. You want to change. but it's like you're not structuring it so you can change, or it's just you're trying to do way too much. And if pretty much if you try to implement something new and it's like a heavy load, you might do it for a day, you might do it for a week, but you're gonna ultimately default to your old habits because that change is it's way too much for you to do consistently. And that's the thing. You want to make sure that you are able to do these goals that you're setting for yourself on a consistent basis, and that would get you more further than if you set 10 goals and you don't start any of them. So moving on, we're going to talk about the new year blueprint. How are we going to set goals, and like what is the proper way to do it? So one, I want you guys, to look through your numbers, look through the journal and see what is dragging you or like what you're doing well. And that's the first step. The first step is to find basically anything that stands out to you. Like when you look through your numbers, is there a certain month that stands out? Is there a month where you have way too much activity? Is there a month where activity is low? How are you doing in those months? Usually, I want to say when you're looking through your numbers, you kind of know how you're trading. You can kind of like where you want to be in your trading. And I would say something would stand out to you in your numbers. So for me, we're going to get into this later. When I was looking through my months, I noticed like some months just had way too much activity. It's like, you're pushing what 60, 50 trades, and for me, that's not where I want to be. I don't want to be pushing 60, 50 trades. And the question that comes to mind is, or it's like not even a question, it's like there's no way those 50, 60 trades are all A plus. Because if 50, 60 trades are A plus, I mean, I'll be at ATM at that point. So, and
I was gonna
that's
say, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, your 10,000 account at 250 in a month,
exactly.
right?
And it's definitely not like that. So that's the first point. The second thing is kind of, you want to define what your goal is. So after you look through your numbers, come up with one or two things that you really want to focus on. This could be, like I said, this could be something related to execution. Maybe you want to work on order flow, maybe you want to work on timing or things like that. Or maybe you want to work on like your scenario development. Anything that you pretty much want to focus on, make that your goal. And then once you have that, well, one, it needs to be meaningful to you. So like when you wake up in the morning, you know what you want to do. You know you're focusing on this, and you need to be able to stick to it. And then after you have your goal, now it's time to create a game plan to achieve that goal. So think of it like the goal is where you want to be. How are you going to get there? You need to come up with a plan for how you're going to get there. So, what could be some examples of this? So, for this quarter, before the session starts, I want to focus on creating a primary and secondary scenario. So that's the goal that we're going to use as an example. If we want to create a game plan for that goal, it could be something like this. If my goal is to create a primary and secondary scenario every morning before the bell, the game plan would be coming in early every morning to make sure that I can actually do my market scan and do those scenarios. If the market opens, well, whenever your market opens at 9 for crude and I think some other commodities, uh 9:30 for the indices, and that's Eastern, you want to make sure you're in, I want to say at least an hour early, just so you could do your pre-market scan, develop your scenarios, set your targets, and you're you're prepared for the trading day. It could be different, it depends on what your goal is. And then I also recommend, if you're having trouble setting goals, ChatGPT can be pretty helpful in helping you with that. And then finally, you're just doing your monthly or quarterly check-ins. You want to make sure that you're on track. You want to make sure that if there's something along the way that is, if there's like a leak in your game plan, you want to catch it. You don't want to wait until the end of the year to catch the leak. That's way too long. So monthly, quarterly, weekly check-ins, it doesn't matter as long as you're doing check-ins. And I think also another thing that you guys could do is having an accountability partner. So for me, that could be Rob. I could tell Rob, look, Rob, I want to focus on my scenario development, and I want to make a pre-market and secondary scenario every single day. I could send it to Rob to make so if I don't send him a pre-market and secondary scenario, he's gonna say, why is it not there? Why are you not prepared for this session? So that's one way that you guys could set goals, create them, have a game plan, and then also making sure that you're on track, to achieve those goals. And
I definitely
then,
like that blueprint.
yeah,
That looks pretty solid. Is that your blueprint that you're that is that your personal blueprint that you're going to be using for
yeah, yes,
2026?
I pretty much already I used this blueprint and sort of created already my goals for 2026,
Nice.
which yeah, and it's pretty much the example. But I think you said that you have a similar example. So do you want to just go with yours?
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, these are all yours. Go ahead and go
Yeah,
over yours first, and I'm going to segue in because I remember seeing yours, and then I'll go ahead and mention mine.
yeah. So pretty much, like I said in the last slide, I noticed some months I was pushing. Some days I had like 4 to 7 trades, and if I'm doing the weekly, I really don't need to be trading 4 to 7. I don't. That's just a little bit too much activity for me. For others, that might be normal. For me, I just don't like that. So my goal is to reduce that activity. So how I would structure it is for this quarter, I want to focus on trading my setups that are in line with the context instead of trading the setup blindly. What do I mean by that? What I noticed is every time the setup would occur, I would take it, whether it was in line with context, whether it was trading against the trend. I see the setup and I take it. And that's kind of where the leak was coming from. I was just taking the setup blindly, which is not what I want to do. So, how we're gonna so my game plan to work on that goal is if a trade is setting up, I want to see a side gaining control. For example, me and Rob, we do a lot of reversal trades. If I'm trading a reversal, I need to see the side that I'm trading on at least win a battle. I can't just something that John says, John at CT, John 471, he says he's willing to let the other guy be wrong. So, and that's kind of something that stuck to me. I don't need to be the first guy in the trade. As long as I'm allowing a side to show its hands and then I'm trading with that side, that's totally fine for me because I mean, yes, you can be in early, but you take 4 or 5 trades. It's like if you're in early and you took 4 or 5 cuts, then are you really benefiting from being in early? Not really. So this is my example for how I would structure a goal. Uh, is your goal similar to mine, or what was it?
So, one of my goals, um, there was some overactivity for me, and actually, this one is really what I wanted to to push as well because again, like it was you and why as you and I focus on this weekly trade, I want to be very particular about not over trading. And I could catch myself going back to my old ways and just, scooping little trades here and there for some scalps or taking less than savory setups. And then, if I get a few trades that are either partial scales and then stops, those drain me, and then also I might be missing out on things. So I wanted to make sure to kind of tone it down, and very that there's your A setup, your B setup, your C setup. I don't want to take C setups. Like you could think of it as what kind of girls do you want to approach if you're, looking for some girls for dates. You want to approach the hottest girls that also you got to get a good vibe with. You don't want to just approach any old fucking thing like chick's too pretty with an Adam's apple. She's got a dick. That could be your C setup, and you don't want to take too many of those because it's gonna hurt you. She's gonna bend you over and fuck you with the ass. Um, I don't know what the hell that's got to do with it, but I need to stop going after any old setup, and that's found to be. It's not as harmful. It just tires me the fuck out. So, but was looking back. probably the last 6 months in 2025, I started to get a lot more active, and I just did not want to do that. So one of my goals was, yes, to reduce frequency and really, it really push the preparation and waiting for certain spots, or asking myself, what do I need to see to, get into the trade that I want to get in and size it up and go. Not just, you know pick certain spots that I identify as, oh, this looks like a good scalp. I could do a good scalp and see if it works. And yeah, they work, and then they don't, and then I end up, really blasting my energy. And you know, to the end of the week, I don't want to be so damn tired that I'm trying to recuperate over the weekend, where I'm kind of useless and just tired, and then start it up again. Like a lot of people treat their 9 to 5 like that. A lot of people just say, "Oh, all right, I'm going to work Monday through Friday, going to be burned out by Friday, recover just so you could do it again." I don't want to do that. That's one of my, things that I don't want to do. One of my one of my blueprint ordeals, just like you, was to do your scenarios. Most of the time I do those, in my head or on paper, just kind of jot down in my mind. I actually wanted to make more of a recording. I actually wanted to, set forth of, like, my goal was to do a pre-market video and then do a post-market. My game plan there is waking up, making sure that I'm doing all my prep work, setting up some sort of live stream or my recording, talking through, even if it just sounds like jibber jabber nonsense. It doesn't have to be like I'm addressing a crowd just yet. I'm just kind of speaking the thoughts in my head on what, I'm expecting, for the session, and then drawing out my scenarios, and then, upload the video, and then get going. And then at the end of the day, see how I perform. My post market video is going to basically be my debriefing. Here was my plan. Did I stick to it? How'd my trades do? Kind of post my trades. I want to start showing some of that stuff. So, but yeah, some of the problems that I've had, just like how you mentioned, taking a lot of trades in a month, it gets tiring. And then when you start looking at all the little trades that were like these small little losers, and then they nullify this amazing trade that you did, yeah, you really, it really becomes real when you print up the P&L sheets. Like when you look at your, like, I'll open up my Rhythmic and I'll look at my statements, and I'll print out the, so some, not print them out like on paper, but just have them up and look at them and say, oh shit, if I didn't, act like a scalper here for these few days, I could have, stayed out of trouble. And it's not easy, but it's something that I definitely want to work on. So
Yeah, for sure. And I totally get you when you say, you kind of have that one trade, which is like it's a nice size trade, and like you make a good amount on it. And
yeah,
then, the next day comes and you're doing like, I don't know, or the next couple of days, and you're in 2, 3 trades every single day. End of the week comes, that big trade that you took wiped out. And that's like,
yeah,
that feeling
it's not
sucks.
gonna work. Yeah, it,
Yeah.
it sucks. I'd rather just be happy, and that's fine. I'd rather spend the whole week waiting for one or two really good trades, than grabbing them and then getting in these marginal trades that either B, take away from the profits of the big trades. And I've had that. I've had a really solid weekly trade, set up like on a Sunday night, get it, nail it, and then I give back half of it, during one week. It just feels like shit. But that's the hard part is, I mean, it's real. The market offers so many opportunities. You have to just discern which ones are the best. So I really wanted to be very particular at, why am I going to take a reversal trade here? Or if I'm going to wait for a continuation trade, I need to see a certain setup. If it doesn't look appealing, pass on it. And if I was right on it and I didn't take it, well, fuck me. But if I was wrong on it and didn't take it, I could, feel good about that.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Next slide we do have is a Q&A. I'm not sure if is there anyone watching this live? Is there any questions coming in, or it's
let's
like,
see.
yeah.
I don't, I don't know. That is a good question. I'm going to go to the link. I didn't keep it open because there was no, there's no there is no one.
Okay, that's fine.
Everybody's probably fucking too hungover from New Year's Eve,
Yeah.
uh, or well, who knows?
Yeah,
But
that's fine. Okay, so I guess
yeah,
we'll just end the stream here. If you guys like enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe. And also if you guys, I don't know, do you guys prefer a live stream with the Q&A at the end or just regular videos and then no Q&A? Maybe, I don't know, we'll do like a separate video, kind of gather a whole bunch of questions and then do that separately. I'm not sure how we'll structure it, but this was like a different thing for us. We're just kind of testing it out. So if you guys, enjoyed it, let us know. And I think that's a wrap for this stream. You have anything else you want to add?
not really much. I don't know. I know tomorrow is a live trading day. It's the very first day of the month, but it's on a Friday, so I'm just debating on if I'm gonna go in or just wait till the next week. Not really sure. But no, I don't really have anything to add to the presentation. Just some of the stuff that I mentioned that I wanted to work on, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So
So take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next stream or well, actually, no, the next thing would be the Sunday video. So stay
yeah,
tuned for
our
that.
Sunday
And then
video.
we'll see you guys in the next year. Well, the year already
Cool.
started. We'll see you guys in the next
All
video. Take care.
right, take care, everybody.